Does marketing and content creation ever feel hard and time-consuming? What if it didn't have to be that way?
Join Rob Drummond,
Matthew Bliss,
and me, Pete Daly-Dixon, your ideal companions on the journey to a value-first approach to business growth, here on Help Before You Sell.
Help Before You Sell sounds simple in practice, but in the heat of the moment, it's all too easy to leap into sales mode. On this episode, we explore why this is such a problem and why we love podcasting as a way to help people authentically at scale.
I think the world needs great stories, and I think we've been, I want to say, conditioned or led to think that our stories don't matter, that it's not relevant to our value, that people aren't interested in them. And I've just seen when my clients say it's not true. When you experience it and feel, when you put your story out into the world, and an ideal client resonates with your story and they see you in a category of one and go, yes, I don't want a web designer, I want you. When you experience that, that's another reason that I think this is work worth doing.
And that's part of the beauty and the power of podcasting, isn't it? It's like you have the opportunity to, as one brilliant podcaster said once, sell the relationship. You've got an opportunity to allow people to see yourself as you really are and get to know you in a way that is just almost impossible. I mean, you might think video is an even better way. Seeing how people react to a microphone being stuck in front of their face, like you put a camera in front of their face, they become less of themselves often rather than more themselves. That's why, really, I guess you go to drama school and acting classes to learn how to be yourself or somebody else, but to learn how to be natural in front of a camera and an audience. So
my route into storytelling, actually, or specifically business storytelling, was I was on the list of a guy called Sean D'Souza, who's a marketing guy. He runs a marketing training company. He started a podcast called the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. And I listened to maybe 30 episodes or so. And maybe on the 31st episode, he said, right, I'm running a storytelling workshop in Amsterdam in 2 months' time. There's 17 places. If you want one, go here. And I went, yeah, all right. I've been listening for this long. Let's do it. I'd already decided I was going to go before I got to the sales page. The sales page just worked through the details. It was the groundwork of trust was already established. So I wanted to throw that in there as an example of a time where I've listened to podcasting and subsequently spent a lot of money on something. And I wondered if you guys had ever done the same.
Yeah, I do have an experience with that, Rob. I haven't spent the money yet, but I know that I will.
You get this vibration of feeling, don't you, of when you know something is right. It's like, okay, I don't have the money right now. I will find a way of doing it because it feels correct.
Yeah. And actually, the Activate Your Podcast project was born almost directly out of one of the podcasts that I listened to in a family of podcasts. So the organization is called Strategic Coach, founded by Dan Sullivan and his wife, Babs, 40 odd years ago. The premier coaching organization for entrepreneurs worldwide, hands down, without a shadow of a doubt. The quality of thinking tools and work that goes on inside Strategic Coach is just amazing. I got introduced as Strategic Coach by a very good friend of ours, Gareth Everson. He sent me a PDF that sent me down another rabbit warren. I seem to spend my life in rabbit warrens. And I came across their podcasts. And I started listening to one. It was called Podcast Payoffs. It was, how to leverage this technology and things for your business. And I got the books, 10 times is easier than 2 times, and Who Not How. And then realized that there were other podcasts in the family as well. So Dan, the founder of Strategic Coach, is actually involved in 12 podcasts, I think, in the family. And they're all on entrepreneurship, but all on different aspects of it. So you've got Podcast Payoffs, which is about podcasts.
They're highly focused on one specific thing. They're not trying to cover everything with one podcast.
Well, exactly. So they're all different aspects of the entrepreneurial journey, but all coming from the Strategic Coach. So you've got the 10X Talk with Joe Polish. And there's one with the lady inside Strategic Coach that manages the team aspect, team coaching. All of them are only monthly podcasts, but there's multiple episodes coming out from different podcasts throughout. And I'm still listening to the podcast, and I know it's not a low ticket entry price to get in. It's close on £10,000 for a year. But I know that once Activate Your Podcast gets to the kind of critical mass that we know that it can get to, that's one of the first things that I'm gonna join is strategic coach.
But you've been floating around different aspects of it. So the storytelling, the narrative-driven aspects of marketing are the things that you've found and focused on after that time. Peter, you had a long time in shoebox networking, and that relational component of connecting with people is the thing that drives the people who want to come to activate their podcast and get on board to start sharing their story for the narrative-driven discussions with Rob. And for me, I don't see podcasting as the skill that I bring to the table. Podcasting is the channel, but the connective tissue is the ability to hear a story that's delivered by Rob and assemble it in a way that's cogent, that is in sequence, it makes sense, and then also the ability to clean up that audio and make it sound pristine is just, it's a little bit helpful as well. So we're all bringing our unique talents to the table, and we enjoy doing it.
I think the reason we love podcasting is because people can hear the cadence of your voice. They can feel specifically in session with you. You get to help people automatically at scale. However, I have a bone to pick with you two. So when we first started talking about help before you sell, the first thing that came to my mind was Dean Jackson's cheese and whiskers theory of marketing. So I might butcher this for the benefit. If Dean ever listens to this, I apologize. But you as the marketer are the mouse. So the mouse is quite scary. It's got big teeth, likes to eat mice. The customer is the mouse. And what do mice like? Mice like cheese. So cheese, in our analogy, is things that help them, things that move them forward. The mouse wants cheese. What you've done as the cat is you've put a bit of cheese in front of the mouse, but your whiskers are poking out. They can see that you're offering them some cheese, but they have a feeling that they might be in a trap or that something's going to snap shut on them. And that's what it feels like. You know, when you download someone's lead magnet and it's some guy who's popped up on Facebook and they're standing in front of some like rented helicopter or something, and they said, yeah, for just a mere exchange of your email address, they're going to give you their full system for how they achieve financial freedom. And I'm like, yeah, this is cheese, but it's in a massive trap that's going to snap shut and try to charge you about 10 grand. So my bone to pick is we've been talking for a while about our podcast activation service. So I'm hearing whiskers poking out the side here. So I think we want to be fair and sort of talk through, well, what are the other ways someone might help before they sell?
You know, I've been trying to unpack that analogy for myself, because after telling my story of basically handing over, like I was a cheese vendor for a long time and my whiskers were cut. Like they knew there were no mousetraps around because someone else was holding a trap over me in terms of providing my entire salary to be able to give the cheese to other people. Like I was the cat in the trap at that point. So it's very interesting that my situation turns that on its head. But the very funny thing about podcasting that we haven't talked about yet is something that most people realize or feel compelled to do when they listen to a podcast they really enjoy, is that anybody can do it. There is a capacity for anyone to learn how to create a podcast in some capacity or another. The thing that gets underestimated a lot, though, is that the path to creating a podcast that someone might A, be happy with, or B, compel other people to listen is a number of large components, not forgetting all of the administrative nonsense that you have to go through just to get it into people's ears. Now, if anyone listens to this podcast, decides they would like to activate their own podcast, they would be very welcome to do so. I don't think there's any whiskers poking out of that cheese. Like they may love the aspect. But I think what the cheese actually is here, and this is where I start to butcher the metaphor a little bit. Maybe we've got some cheddar out there for the people to enjoy and take for themselves, but we keep the brie, we keep the nice camembert behind a locked box. That cheese is handcrafted by a storyteller, polished to perfection by an audio engineer, and delivered to our customers on a desirable silver-polished plate by Peter. It's a different experience, and we provide a bit of a shortcut. So I would say that the whiskers probably don't poke out as much as you think, because if there's not someone compelled to do this for themselves for selfish reasons, there's going to be someone who's challenged out there who would like to give it a go as well.
I want to come back to your bone that you picked. Firstly, I wondered if you were Manny picking that bone with me, because the salesman in me just can't help but
just can't resist it.
Yeah, just can't resist it.
If you're a great cat, you love showing off your whiskers. So.
Well, I have got some good whiskers at the moment because I'm in rehearsal Got a bit of a Hercule Poirot thing going on here. But I think also, at the back of my mind, I also know that the conversation that we're having now is making up the 5 pillar episodes that come out of an activated podcast. And I guess I just wanted to include the fact that what this podcast is the front face of, if you see what I mean. It's like it's not existing just because 3 guys want to talk. Although maybe it should be. Maybe it should be that the 3 of us just want to get together every month and talk about the ways that in our experience, both individually and collectively, and sort of more broadly, each individual involvement in the marketing world, stuff that we know that can help business owners help before they sell. So, I mean, and ultimately that's what this podcast is about. So you, the listener, we don't know, but we expect that you are somebody who owns a business. And what this podcast is about is helping you help before you sell. Do a better job of that.
So you're still selling, but the sale, coming back to my idea of friction, it is lower friction. You're not trying to jump over a massive hurdle at the last moments. You're not trying to hit a hole in one. It's my golf analogy. How many touch points does it take to close a sale? Like, it might take 7, 20. If someone sits on your email list for a year, like you are for strategic coach, how many touch points is there going to be?
A lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot of taps down the golf course, to the point where when you jump on that sales call at the end, it's not a sales call. You can have any monkey just tap it in the hole. Right?
It's interesting you say that. Just going back to what I said about the price point of strategic coach. It was Joe Polish that got Dan into podcasting, and Dan knew that it was working when people were showing up in strategic coach workshops, so that you have 4 workshops a year every quarter. People were showing up in workshops and they had no face-to-face involvement with a salesperson or account manager inside strategic coach. So all they had done was listen to podcasts, maybe read a few books or whatever, and that was enough to get them in. So that it's like if there was an archetypal textbook example of how and why help before you sell works, it's got to be strategic coach. So you, the business owner, if you want to see how help before you sell can help you build a multi-million-dollar business on that principle of helping before you sell, then get on the strategic coach mailing list or listen to some of their podcasts. And my view is that if you see someone succeeding in a way that you want to succeed, then copy, model. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Help Before You Sell, sponsored by Activate Your Podcast. To activate your podcast and help the people who most need you and your services, head to activateyourpodcast.com/help. If you found this episode helpful, please also leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And remember, help more to sell more. See you next time.